What's up, everybody? Emceemur here. I'm having what I want done, and I hope that you are too. It is time for another fantabulous unboxing and review of another fantastic and fun gaming product. Or at least I think it'll be fun. I've already taken a look at one of these things, and I'm not going to say it wasn't fun. I'm not going to necessarily say it was the most fun I've ever had either, but, you know, this one seems a little more cool. This is a little bit more where we're wanting to go with this thing. 3 games on it. The Midway Classic Arcade Classics Volume 1, a little redundant. Midway Classic Arcade Classics Volume 1, 3 hit games, and that's just fine with me, and they are Joust, Gauntlet, and Defender. Now, this is an alternate box. There was a purple box and a system with purple box art, and it said Gauntlet 2 on it and not Gauntlet, which I believe Gauntlet 2 is what's actually on here. Anyway, we're going to plug it in and find out. You know, we're going to get this thing out of its box. We're going to take a look at the unit itself. We're going to take a look at the artwork on the unit itself. We're going to compare gameplay from this thing to the original NES titles featured here and just see how they measure up. When we looked at the wrestling one, man, it was pretty much right on, except for some changes they made in the roster, but visually, the audio, everything was spot on. So not a bad setup. And these are being blown out like a turd after Taco Bell at pretty much any retailer that carries these things. So it's definitely a buyer's market. Without further ado, let's get this thing open right now and take a look at what we have. So here we go, the Midway Classic Arcade Classics Volume 1. You know, I would pay no attention to the $19.99. I certainly didn't pay that. You won't either. Average retail on these right now, you're looking at about $10 for one of these things, or less. Let's get it open. Alright. So we have one user's guide, although I think we pretty much know what we need to do with this thing. Midway Classic Arcade Classics Volume 1. Looking at the artwork on here, you know, I like the graphic. It's kind of cool. Buttons are pretty responsive. Oh, that A feels a little tricky. And the joystick feels good. We'll see how this thing responds in actual gameplay. Let's get it out of here. So cool artwork on it. Takes 3 AA batteries. Got more of the artwork on the side there. Pretty cool. Basic AV connection just like the other one. On-off switch. It's not without its charm. It's going to look good on the shelf, but how is it going to play? Can I see myself really spending time with this thing? Let's take a look at it right now. So busting right into it here, we've got the menu screen. You got your 3 choices up here. It is Gauntlet 2 and Defender 2. We're going to go with Joust, the first one on the list, and you can see they've kind of made their own version of the title screen here. We saw that with the WWF machine when we looked at it. They kind of have to put their own mark on it, but very similar. And looking at the game version here, from what I can recollect, I mean, it's been a few minutes since I played Joust on the NES, but this looks like what I expected it to, and it looks good, and it plays good, so there's really nothing wrong here. We're using this big wonky joystick, but I'm not having any issues controlling it, so I think this is going to be a pretty fun game to have in this format, on a plug-and-play like this. Kind of cool. Now, we're going to switch gears. We've got to compare. We're going to take a look at the NES version. And here's the original, looking at the original title screen. Looking for any differences, and it looks like they're just subtle differences. It looks like the color palette is a little darker, if you will. That's really the only difference. I mean, other than that, it's the same game. The colors just look a little bit brighter on the plug and play, and I'm not saying they're better in that sense. I'm just saying that's the one sense in which it's different. And of course, we're playing with a D-pad now that we're on the NES version, but that's a pretty good look at it there. That gives us an idea in the differences. I'm interested to see what we're going to see in the other 2 games as far as differences on this unit. How off the hook is some Gauntlet? I mean, any Gauntlet. Gauntlet just rules. And I have played the NES version of Gauntlet 2 recently. This doesn't look really any different from it. This is what I expected. The title screen looks exact. This might be a little different though. We got some additional information on screen, a little bit different of a font there. I think that's added, but I'm gonna pick a character class and get right into it. Oh my, I just love the talking in the game, the voice. It's amazing. Love some Gauntlet. I will never stop loving Gauntlet. But this looks right, and of course it feels right. It'd be pretty hard to make Gauntlet not feel right. Gauntlet is just amazing. It just makes you want to crawl dungeons. Absolutely fantastic. I'm going to be interested to see what differences, if any, there are in the actual NES version. I'm not expecting too much of a change. So again, we see the difference that the NES has the darker colors on it, and there's a reason for that. That's where all the detail is here, the muscles on the characters, and even when you get into the gameplay, it looks better with the darker colors. The plug and play went a little too bright on the colors, but doesn't mean it's a bad version. Still totally playable. It doesn't look bad, it just doesn't look as good, and you almost expect that when you're going for something like this. It's either going to be identical or not as good as. It's certainly not going to be better. But again, thinking about the price point here, this thing is under $10. So if you don't already have complete in-box copies of these games for your NES, maybe you don't even have an NES, you could make sense out of purchasing one of these things. So busting right into Defender 2, you know, Defender 2 is not a game I have a lot of experience with. It is a game that has some eerily similar sounds to Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! So be listening for that. But yeah, I didn't play a lot of Defender back in the day, and definitely didn't play Defender 2. But we're here to look at the similarities or differences in this plug-and-play version and the NES version, and we're going to do that. I mean, this is pretty much what you expect. It plays just like any Defender I've ever seen. Now, let's take a look at the NES version. So here we see the title screen for the NES version of Defender 2. We're looking for differences, and right away we'll see that there is a second player option on the NES, which you would not get with the plug and play for obvious reasons. And you know, it looks maybe a little darker. It's hard to tell because we're in outer space on a mostly black screen, but you know, the real difference is that playing with a D-pad here on the NES, and it feels a lot better than the big wonky joystick on the plug and play. It was a little inaccurate on the plug and play, it felt like. Maybe it's just me, but I still gotta say, all in all, this plug and play does a decent job of representing these three classic NES titles. So there you have it, the classic Midway Classic Arcade Classics Volume 1. I mean, it's kind of cool, I guess. I mean, there were some instances there, though, again, where, you know, this joystick, it's big and it swings far and wide. There's a lot of play in it, man. It's not inaccurate as far as that goes, but because of that play, it can start to feel inaccurate in games like Defender 2. I mean, it seemed okay in Gauntlet. Wasn't much of an issue with the wrestling game we played, but yeah, you know, it doesn't feel great, but you would get used to it. It's not bad, nothing wrong with it. And again, as cheap as these are being sold, I mean, as low as $4 for one of these. It looks cool. You know, I'm into plug and plays right now. It's plug and play mania going on right here on the Emceemur show. This is gonna look good on a shelf. I don't know what shelf. I mean, I act like I actually have a shelf for these things. I've got to get somewhere to put all these plug and plays, but hey, we got to look at this thing. Is this for you? I don't know. Only you can answer that question. But we got to look at the games. We got to compare the games side by side with the originals. I think I like what I see here so far. This is going to be nice to add to the collection. But what did you think about what you saw here today? What do you think about this thing? Do you already have one of these things? You're going to go buy one of these things. Do you know anybody that has one of these things? What do you think about these things? You know, I want to know what you think about everything that you saw here today. Right down in the comment section below, because you know that I love getting a conversation going with you right here on the Emceemur show, something that we do a lot of. I want you to drop a like on this video. I hope that you did like this video. And most importantly, if you have not already done so, I hope that you're going to subscribe to the Emceemur show. Be a part of Mer Nation. We're rising up all the fantastic things that we've got going on right here on the Emceemur show. You need to be a part of, and make sure that you smack that notification bell so you are always first to know when new content goes live. You know that I love making it for you. Emceemur signing off for now, and I'll see each and every one of you again next time.